Hello and welcome to the video guide for operating the Truma heating and hot water system controls, typically found with the Truma Combi system. Now, you'll typically find these two controls together. They can be separate in a vehicle, but typically they are together. Some motorhomes, however, will only have one, and that will be the right-hand control. This video can still apply to you, but you don't have the functionality that comes with this additional control here. So, what does this do? So we have two controls. The left one here allows us to choose the different energy sources. This one here allows us to actually turn on and off the different aspects of the system and configure it to our liking. So if you only have this control, it means you are limited to not being able to choose what energy source you have. So typically in that instance, most motorhomes that only have this control are gas-only systems. Okay, so you'll still be able to use the full functionality of this, but you'll be purely using gas for every function. Whereas with this control present, you have the ability to choose the energy source that you're using to power your heating or hot water. Now, you unfortunately cannot run your heating and hot water on separate energy sources if you have this control present. By the way, you cannot run, for example, your hot water on gas but your heating on mains electric. That's not possible. They unfortunately have to use the same energy source. And as mentioned, that's what this dial does here on the left. So this is the first dial you need to operate before you turn anything else on. So we're going to choose our energy selection. That's what this control does, and we do that by twisting this silver or grey surround. And as you can see, it's got a little sort of pimply part there that's going to point to the different symbols. So the symbols we have two wiggly lines and a single wiggly line. These are both mains electric only options. Okay, so selecting either of these will only use mains electric, and two wiggly lines is the high power, one wiggly line is low power. Okay, so that's not going to affect your temperature or anything like that. It will affect the ability for it to achieve certain temperatures, of course, but this is just essentially setting the wattage of the mains electric system. So either high power or low power. Then the next position we have down here is a flame on its own. This is gas only. So with this control set to here, we are going to exclusively use gas. Then we have these two settings down the bottom, which you'll notice are combinations of the three we've just gone through. We have gas with low power electric, and we have gas with high power electric. Now typically these two positions will be used when things are particularly cold and you want to get the van or the water up to temperature as quickly as possible, and you can combine the efforts of both your gas and your electric systems together to achieve that nice and quickly. Typically, once you've got things nice and warm and you're happy, you would then choose either gas only or one of the electric only options to maintain your heat. After that, you'll only use these as a nice little sort of booster to get things warm initially. So I'm going to choose high power electric for this example at the start here, and then we'll now move on to the next control, which allows us to actually choose what we're turning on and off. Now, if this is the only control you have, essentially you'll skip everything we've just done there because you are effectively fixed into gas only. So this control works very, very similarly. We have a silver surround here as well, which will select between different positions here, but we also have an internal dial. Now this internal dial only applies or has an effect when we have a heating option turned on. So if we're running our heating, this will function. Otherwise it has no function. This can be confusing because as soon as we turn something on with this control, we will see some lights appear in here, and it can look as though they're illuminating the numbers. Don't worry, those lights are permanent. They will stay on regardless of what you turn the dial to. The dial only applies to heating, so just bear that in mind. So what do we have here? So the sort of 3 o'clock position, if you will, if this was a clock face, the 3 o'clock position here is the off position. That's the 0 or the O there. that's off. That's where we are currently. We have 2 settings above the off and we have 2 settings below. Typically, people regard the top 2 settings as the summer settings, and this is because in the summer it's already nice and warm, so you're typically not going to want to run heating, but you will likely need hot water still for washing up and showering. So that's what these 2 settings are. They are purely hot water only, and you have the choice of either 40 degrees or 60 degrees hot water. So I'm going to choose 40 degrees right now, and you'll see there that we get a light come on, a green light there. We also have an amber light that's appeared on the other control. This green light means that the system is on, and like I say, because I haven't turned on any heating, I've only turned on the hot water boiler, this control has no effect. Even though it looks like it's illuminating numbers, don't worry about that, the green light is just a green light. So this is having absolutely no effect whatsoever. I'm stuck at 40 degrees hot water. Okay, this amber light means that we are drawing on mains electric. Okay, if I was using gas as the energy source, this would not illuminate. So it's just easy to be able to tell at a quick glance if our heating and hot water is using mains electric, and you can also diagnose, because if the system turns on but doesn't have an amber light when you're trying to use a mains electric option, of course you can tell that there's a problem. Now, I'm going to turn to 60 degrees hot water now, and look what happens. In a split second we should see another light appear. Hopefully, there it is. Now that amber light on the opposite side of this control means that the hot water is heating up. So I'd already heated the water up to 40 degrees prior to this demonstration, hence why when I turned it on, the amber light did not appear. But as soon as I turned to 60 degrees hot water, I'm now attempting to heat the water back up, and so therefore this amber light appears to tell me that the water is now heating up. So if ever you see the amber light on there on this right hand control, that means your water is on, but it's just getting up to temperature. So that's the top 2 positions known as the summer settings. Now the winter settings are the ones below the off position here. They're called the winter settings because typically, unlike the summer, it's going to be cold outside and likely cold inside the van as well. So you're going to want some heating on as well as hot water. Now the first position down is a picture of a flame only. And this is where a lot of people get confused, because the observant of you would notice that this flame symbol is the same as this flame symbol just here. They don't actually mean the same thing, unfortunately, and that's why people get confused. On this dial, if you'll remember, the flame here means gas energy source, so you're using gas to power things. But on this dial, this means heating. Okay, so if I was to turn this down to the heating position now, to that flame, that now means I am running the heating. Okay, so that's what that is going to be doing. Okay, and I seem to have some sort of issue with this particular unit right now, because normally that should show a single. Bear with me 1 second. I think it's gone on to lockout because I've been twiddling these dials too much. Yeah, we would go down. We would see the same thing as we saw just a moment ago with the green light here and the amber light over here because we were using mains electric. But we wouldn't see a hot water heat symbol there, or light should I say, because we wouldn't be using hot water. This position down here on the flame is only heating, so no hot water, heating on its own. The position below that, right here, this is heating and hot water together. Okay, but you are limited, if you'll notice, to 60 degrees there, so you don't have an option of temperature selection, unfortunately. Now on either of these 2 winter settings, okay, you do have the ability to use this internal dial now to set the temperature, and you would refer as the reference point to where the off position is. So basically where the green light is indicating your temperature selection, choosing when the heating cuts in and out. So that would be setting 4. That would be sort of 3.5, if you will. Okay, so with either of these 2 settings, where you're running the heating, this is your thermostat for the heating. Okay. If you're running the heating and hot water option together, you will have an amber light appear here to tell you that the hot water is heating up, because of course you are using hot water as well. So just to recap, this is the energy selection here. This will allow us to choose between high power electric, low power electric, gas only, gas with high power electric, or low power electric, sorry, and gas with high power electric. This control here allows us to turn on the different aspects of the system. We have off in this position here with the 0. Above that we have the summer settings of hot water only, and we can choose between either 40 degrees or 60 degrees hot water. The internal dial has no effect. If we go down below the off position, we have winter settings where we have the option of heating on its own, where the dial here will have an effect to choose when the heating cuts in and cuts out, just like a thermostat, but we will have no hot water. The lowest position is heating and hot water together. We are fixed at 60 degrees for the hot water temperature, and once more the internal dial here will function as a thermostat to choose when the heating cuts in and cuts out. Lights wise, we will always have a green light on here when the system is on, and if we're heating water, you will have an amber light here appear whenever that water is being warmed up. When the water achieves its chosen temperature, that amber light will extinguish. If you're using mains electric as an energy source, you will have an amber light appear here. If you're using gas as your energy source, you will not have an amber light appear there. So for example, if I now turn the hot water on to 40 degrees, but I'm going to choose gas as the energy source, the amber light has gone out. And that's essentially it. Now to turn the system off, you just twist this down to the off position. If this dial is in the off position, the entire system is off. Okay, this will have no effect on turning on or off at all. As mentioned, that just chooses your energy selection. To turn things off, it's this control in the 0 position, and when all the lights have extinguished, then you are good to go. Now, if you have an issue, you will typically find a red light will appear in here somewhere as well, and sometimes it can flash. This will indicate some form of problem. If you're using gas as your energy selection, or if you do not have this control and your entire system is based on this one control, therefore you are only on gas, you may have a boiler flue on your motorhome that has a cover fitted, in which case you may need to check that the cover is indeed removed. You may need to check that your gas supply is on and there are no airlocks or problems with the gas supply to the system. If you're running mains electric, double check that, if you're using mains electric as your energy source, double check that you have a good main supply into the motorhome, that you have no issues, that your isolator switches, if you have any, are all turned on. Just do the standard checks to make sure that the energy source you're choosing here is able to be available to the heating and hot water system. Those checks alone will 9 times out of 10 solve most problems, because usually something has been forgotten or missed. But if not, then you may have an issue with the unit and you'll need to contact your dealer or supplier in order to get that looked into. So that's the Truma typically combi system controls that you'll find in many vehicles for both either both controls together or just the solo control like that.